Faith Without Fear is the name of the film. The woman in the burqa and who made the movie is Irshad Manji, and she joins us. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Was it like, first of all, off the top of the show, would you like Luch to be your security guard? He can do that.
I want him to be my boyfriend, actually.
Do you? Nice.
I do. He can convert me in so many ways, and I him in so many ways. But let's just leave it at that.
That's what the Christian right needs if they don't like homosexuality. Luch. Luch will just convert everybody.
Yes. He is the straight answer.
Is that what he is? Nice. You were playing it kind of funny when you put in the burqa on. You were obviously because you're a funny girl, but.
I've been called many things in my life, and funny is not usually one of them. But thank you.
You were there.
I was there.
When you put it on, what did you feel when you were inside that?
It was, first of all, I was actually trying to show a measure of empathy, believe it or not. I wanted to see what it felt like. It wasn't just a gag. But the longer I put it on, and I had it on for 3 hours, the more I realized how stifling this thing is. And I actually say in the film, George, that I felt that it was demeaning, not simply because it erased my individuality in terms of how I looked, but more importantly because to me, not to all Muslim women, obviously, but to me, it does represent erasing your independent thinking. And for reasons I go into in the film. But I have to say something else as well. You don't see this on the screen. When I was in the marketplace in Yemen, I actually had 3 bodyguards with me. Not because I asked for them, I didn't. The Yemeni government assigned them to me, saying that they did not want to have the dubious distinction of being the place where Manji gets blown up. I'm serious. And they said that, my ideas had already, penetrated into that part of the world, and a whole lot of people are not going to be happy to see me there.
There's a really powerful moment in the picture, and it's in the early going, where you talk about how you have a lock on your mailbox at home because you don't want a letter bomb, and your windows are bulletproof.
Again, at the recommendation of the police.
Think about your life.
You know what? Honestly, George, it's a blessed one. I say that quite sincerely. Look, I wake up every morning with a sense of purpose. How fortunate is that? And you know what? I'm not trying to be sappy here. I am an immigrant, actually a refugee to Canada. Every day I thank God that I have wound up in a country where, as a Muslim girl and now as a Muslim woman, I can dream big dreams and tap much, if not most, of my potential. How privileged is that? And how irresponsible would it be for me to turn my back on that privilege?
As it's stated in lots of places, your movie talked about it as well. What is the point of having freedom unless you exercise it? Exactly
right. But exercise it, obviously, as responsibly as you can. I don't, believe it or not, despite popular Muslim opinion, I don't go out of my way to offend or to court death threats. I go out of my way to show people that it is possible to dissent with the establishment and live.
But you know that when you have a book called The Trouble with Islam, there are those who are thinking you're going out of your way to say that there's trouble with Islam.
Yeah.
And that there are a certain group of people who just don't want to hear it.
Sure, they don't want to hear it. Look, there were lots of people in America who didn't want to hear Martin Luther King Jr.'s message. And again, I'm not trying to compare myself to him. I do take inspiration from him. And the beauty is about that example that he was dogged out, not just by whites, that goes without saying. He was dogged out by liberals in the black church who accused him of creating, quote, needless tension, going out of his way, right? And in his now famous letter from a Birmingham jail, Martin Luther King Jr. wrote to these clergy to say, look, I must confess I am not afraid of the word tension. I have earnestly opposed violent tension, but there is a type of constructive, nonviolent tension which is necessary for growth. The point is, without agitation, there is no tension. And without tension, ain't no growth.
No, that's true. And I agree with you 100%. What I found really interesting in this was not that you were, because everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people do go, as they get older, try to reconcile their faith with their values. And they don't want to abandon their faith, but maybe their faith doesn't represent all the things or their understanding of their faith. But what I found neat in this picture was, and when people see this show, is you had to reconcile it with your mom. And that was maybe, and even if you don't care about the subject of a woman's reconciling Islam, the relationship between you and your mother was really neat because she's Muslim.
Devoutly so.
Right, and you are in the home, and you're also challenging her.
And she's challenging me. Actually, that's what I find even more interesting, is that there are a number of moments in this film where she puts me in my place. And, you know, I describe her as a 5 times a day on your rug to pray Muslim. But the beauty of being mom is that, you know, she is also, despite all of that devotion to God, she is also open-minded enough to engage with her daughter in discussion and even debate about the most basic pillars of Islam. In other words, George, she to me is the hope for Islam today.
I have I am, as I paid more attention to religion, and I grew up in a devout home, a Christian home. When a woman can't have the top.
Did you guys know that, by the way, about George?
This is not about me. This is not about me.
No,
this is about you. This is not about me.
I hear you. I hear you. But again, you know, I find it fascinating that well, I shouldn't play interviewer. I realize that, but I'm fascinated that you wound up to be somebody of such different values from your own parents.
I think my mother's fascinated by that as well.
I think your mother and I need to have a chat, maybe do a second documentary.
Yeah, maybe you should. She won't go on camera. She's too smart for that. The idea, though, that, you know, when you look at what a religion is and what a certain part of the religion is, you look at the book and you look at the way it's taught, and I just wonder, well, maybe that's just not what it is. And we live in a generation where people are very pick and choosy, right? Yeah. I want to be a fundamentalist Christian, I want to be a fundamentalist Islamist, but I don't want to subscribe to all of the things. And then I wonder, maybe at a certain point, maybe Islam's just not for you. Maybe you're not a traditional Muslim.
Well, I'm not a traditional Muslim.
Or maybe not even a Muslim in the way you were raised.
Are you calling me an infidel?
Maybe. I'm saying, I'm asking.
Are you Mr. Purity?
I'm asking you. That's why I'm not being interviewed. No, but
well, you are now.
Well, yeah, no, but I'm like, you know, there's this point where, like, I laugh at my friends when they're like, hey, I gave up all these things for Lent, and I said, do you still have sex with your girlfriend who you're not married to? Yeah. Pick and choose, right? And it's the same thing.
I swear to God, I don't have sex with my girlfriend.
Fair enough.
I don't.
Not during Lent?
No.
But did you ever have a point where, you know, maybe this isn't for me?
I have had to struggle with that issue actually ever since I was a child. But I've long felt that walking away from the faith would be running away. Because the struggle is what it's all about. And here's why I say that. Notice that I use the word faith. I try not to use the word religion. I'm not that interested in organized ritual.
Well,
you know, I'm interested in the notions of faith. And by faith, I actually distinguish that from dogma. Faith, it seems to me, George, is secure enough to handle questions. Faith is never threatened by questions. Dogma, on the other hand, is always threatened by questions because it's brittle, it's calcified, it's rigid, it breaks under the spotlight of inquiry, and therefore deserves to be threatened by questions.
If it wasn't even remotely difficult to believe in, it wouldn't be faith. It would be fact.
That's it. That's it. And look, whether or not, you know, you are an atheist or an agnostic or whatever you call yourself, I think that there is room in this world for some humility, and the kind of humility that allows us to realize that, you know, we're not always in control of our destinies, and that sometimes we do have to lend authority to a higher power. Certainly as a Muslim, I believe that only God knows fully the truth of anything, but I also believe, as the Quran, Islam's holy book, tells us, that God is compassionate and merciful, and that's why, as I've often told my mother, on the day of judgment, I can at the very least expect a great conversation with God. Maybe not approval. Yeah. Maybe not. And she's like,
But if you don't get approval, it's probably going to end the way you don't want it to end. That way. You just, if you don't know, do you think about that? Do you think about the end? Do you worry about it?
What kind of question is that?
You brought it up.
What do you mean the end?
You brought it up because
what do you mean the end?
You have bulletproof glass in your house and a mailbox for mail bombs.
Honey, you brought that up. I only answered the question. But okay.
No, but you have to. I mean, honey, now what happened here?
You know, if I don't get Luch, I get George.
Fair
not
enough.
That you're second best, but I'm just saying.
I'm not anywhere close to it.
Okay.
But you do face the prospect of your end very differently than most people do because you have threats, consistent threats.
You know, I actually discussed this with none other than Salman Rushdie, the author of the Satanic Verses, and he told me something quite brilliant. He said, whenever a writer puts out a thought, it can be disagreed with vigorously, vehemently, even violently, but it cannot be unthought. And that is the great permanent gift that the artist gives to this world. And he emphasized permanent, which I love, because he wasn't denying I might be offed for voicing my views. Yeah. He was implying rather strongly that the purpose with which you live is far more important than the number of years with which you live. And try as I might, I couldn't come up with a counter-argument on that one, my friend.
Really nice to see you again.
God bless you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Irshad Manji, everybody. All right, so If you want to see it, you should see it. If you get the channel PBS, and if you don't get PBS, you really need to get PBS. You can see her film Thursday, April the 19th, 9 o'clock Eastern Time and Pacific. Also on Global Television as well. Global Television, Saturday, April 21st at 8 o'clock. Lots more to come on the program tonight, including this. And here is what's coming up on the program tonight. One of Hollywood's rising